Hi, guys. Welcome to the late show. I'm so happy to see you all. We had some good fights today. Well, I watched a lot of the undercard, but the only fight that I was really interested in, really invested in, was the heavyweight fight. I had some work to do during the day, so I had to contend with the replay. But that was great. That was great. Um, Bear, thank you so much for your support. Upvote and subscribe. Thomas, thank you. Remember to like and subscribe. We are trying to get Lord monetized. Absolutely, yes. I want to reach 1,000 subscribers. That's my first major goal. I want to grow the channel. I want the growth to be organic. I want you to enjoy the content. I want you to participate in creating the content. I want you to join me on the live streams. But yes, obviously, I'm putting time into this. I'm putting effort into this. Of course, I'm trying to get monetized. I'm kind of, I kind of find it funny that people keep saying that, talking about money as if it's a dirty thing. I don't understand. But anyway, the most important thing today, we have a couple of things to talk about. I think the super chat that came in about the pièce unique or one of one kind of piece that you would like to be made by Patek or by any other prestige maker, that could be an interesting question to discuss. So I would love you to give your reactions and responses and dreams about that from the chat. I think starting a collection from scratch and maybe having, let's say, 100K and building a 4-piece, 5-piece, or an 8-piece collection, I think that could be another thing that we discuss. And of course, the heavyweight championship from earlier, I think, would be very interesting to discuss as well. GB Vol. So let's start with boxing. If Fury retires, the lineal heavyweight championship dies, or does it go to Wilder due to the draw? So here's the thing. The lineal championship can be quite confusing. There is a lineal. It's basically, in the simplest terms, every weight division has a line of champions that goes all the way back to the first recognized world champion. And it's about the man who beat the man, right? That's the easiest way of describing that situation. Rock Malcolm, by the way, thank you. Thank you for your support. But of course, since there are boxers who suffer strange twists of fate, sometimes pass away while they're champions, while they're holding the championship belt, while they're holding the recognized lineal championship, which is really an honorary category more than anything else. There are boxers who retire when doing that, right? Which is what happened, in fact, with Fury himself, right? Because he beat Vladimir Klitschko in Germany, and he became the lineal champion. Then he retired, right? For all sorts of reasons. That's another controversy we can perhaps discuss later. And before he came back, since those belts that he had, the 3 of the belts that he had, went vacant, someone else fought for those belts. Again, in fact, for 2 of those belts, it was Vladimir Klitschko again fighting with Anthony Joshua. So the line was basically broken once again, as it happens when someone retires or when someone unexpectedly passes away. So if something like that happens, a consensus has to emerge, basically, right? No one gets the lineal championship just because they had at some point had a draw against a lineal champion. So I can only say that. So if Fury actually retires, I don't think he will. I think it's really a way of building the hype and building up the interest about the potential undisputed championship, which is for all the 4 belts. But if he does retire, then it will be up to the usual suspects, the remaining champion, who is the unified champion, Usyk right now, Alexander Usyk, who is going to have his rematch, I think, in a matter of 2-3 months with Anthony Joshua. I think the best way to establish a consensus would be for an undisputed champion to emerge. So whoever wins that rematch, which I'm expecting to be Usyk actually, will have to somehow find a way of getting that WBC belt, which hypothetically Fury will have vacated since he will have retired. And then when someone becomes an undisputed champion, that reestablishes the lineage. That person becomes also the lineal champion, no matter what. John Suckerhorn barely has 1,000 subs. Suckerhorn is a legend. I might one day surpass him. That may come sooner or later, but I will never be a Suckerhorn. So that's not even a comparison. He's a legend in the Archieverse. John C., you provide value to watch streaming. You should get paid. Thank you for recognizing that. Thomas says, I watched Suckerhorn live stream at like 2 a.m. last night. It's worth your time, BK. Everyone support. Lord, thank you, BK, for your support. Time is money. Yes. Thank you for reminding everyone to upvote. GB Vol says, and Fury is undefeated. Absolutely. The only quote-unquote blemish on his record is that first fight with Deontay Wilder in the US, which basically anyone and everyone who knows anything about boxing thinks he has won, right? But the decision wasn't given to him. It was ruled a draw. You know, but boxing is a very strange and often very corrupt sport. So no one can say anything about that, but he is still undefeated and he has won with the WBC belts, all the belts in that division, even though he never held all 4 of them at the same time. Eric reminds people to upvote. Big Mac, wonderful to see you. J617, good to see you as well. Diego, thanks for dropping by. John C, yes. John C asks Diego, what wine are you drinking? Big Meech, John C bringing up the hard-hitting facts. GB Vol says, I thought Usyk went to fight in Ukraine. He was... you know, not only did he go to Ukraine to fight, there was also, well, I think it's still the case that I think if you're under 60, you're not allowed to leave the country, or 65 maybe. Someone need to double check on that. But at any rate, he was granted special permission to depart Ukraine to start his training camp for the Anthony Joshua rematch. I think the definitive date for that fight, for that rematch, remains to be scheduled, but it's going to happen. I think it's going to happen this summer. Thomas Broadbent says Tyson Fury versus anyone at this point. I think it would be great to see him in a fight for all 4 belts, and then that would be a perfect moment to hang him up. GB Vol says Suckerhorn is a man's man. He doesn't give a shite about hashtags. Yeah, absolutely. I think he's, he's aloof in the best way possible. I think he's actually a very, very graceful man. I like him. Diego M, no wine, John. That is a little bit disappointing, but you don't have to drink every day, of course. GB Vol says Dillian White. Okay, maybe Thomas was just asking who he fought. I thought it would be obvious. It was a big fight, right? I mean, it was in Wembley, and they had to expand the capacity to 93,000. So, yes, GB Vol says, yes, Fury won 11 rounds that first fight. Hey, let's say he won 10 rounds, and then let's give those 2 rounds with the knockdowns 10-8 to Wilder. You still can't somehow calculate a draw out of that situation. I don't want to sound jargony or cryptic. To explain it quickly, a championship fight in boxing these days is fought over 12 rounds. There are 3 judges who score the fight. If you win a round, you get 10 points, and the one who loses the round gets 9 points. If you have a knockdown against your opponent, you win that round by 10-8. And if you win that round so convincingly that it's almost to the point of embarrassment, then it could be different sorts of scores. Of course, people get points taken off for fouls and whatever, but that fight was supposed to be scored in a very straightforward way, and there was no way for a draw to emerge there. Turkey Vulture, I think, yes, Lomachenko is actually fighting in Ukraine, and he decided to stay. Lomachenko was supposed to fight himself for 3 belts at the lightweight division, 135 pounds, that is, in Australia against the Greek-Australian fighter, George Kambosos. But he decided to stay in Ukraine. So actually, the American WBC champion, Devin Haney, is now going to Australia to fight for all the 4 belts, basically, because the other 3 belts are held by Kambosos. That's going to be a big fight. And if Kambosos loses, there will be a rematch as well. 4-9's fine. When is the NYC meetup? I know it's probably on Tim's website, but I'm on my phone and I'm lazy. I don't know the exact date either. All I know about it is October now. I know the Vegas one is October 28th. But I'm going to be at New York City for sure at that meetup. I mean, how can I miss it, right? You know, there's going to be a steakhouse. I guess I belong there. Dixie Enormous, thank you. Lovely to see you in this channel. Kyle Broflovsky, nice nickname there. Was Whoopi Goldberg right about Jewish racism not existing? 1, 2, 3, 4. What is this? These are turkeys, Big Meech. You have some explaining to do. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. BC, howdy, Lord. Please don't mute me. Yes, of course. That's what I do. That's what I do. It's as if it's me who shouts over people and craves for attention and leaves sulking if I'm not granted it, and it's as if I didn't actually have to boot Cam off because he was saying inappropriate things to Oshin and his daughter. But hey, some people know nothing about gratitude, especially when it comes from what they consider to be a wrong place. I guess it's okay. It's okay. I'm interested in always doing the right thing, unlike some other people. Turkey vulture, eagle. That's the bald eagle, our national symbol. TKO. Well, sixth round. Turkey vulture, boxing glove, 94K in Wembley. That is insane. Yes. It was. It's a badass, not was. I missed, I think, I missed the point. Turkey vulture, October sometime. Yes, I don't know exactly when. John C. Vegas is not my Vegas is not my scene. Tim was supposed to come to Los Angeles for Watch Time Los Angeles. That's when we were going to meet. I don't like Vegas. I've been to Vegas on 2 occasions. Both were for boxing. I've never gone for gambling. I've never gone there for any other reason. I just don't like it. You know, if he's in Los Angeles and if he wants to meet up, I'll meet up with him. Why not? Gaz, nice to see you, man. Mr. P, ciao. Half on Smash, upvoted. Thank you so much. Thomas says, is there any way we can get Paul to go to Keen's Steakhouse over Peter Luger's? It's better. Thomas, jump on and make your argument. You can't just say it's better, especially not to me, because I haven't eaten in any of those places. Although when I was still living in New York City, I was eating meat, so I could have, but I haven't tried either one of these. So you have to jump on and make your case for the people, and then we can also make that case to the pontiff if necessary. But I think a lot of people in the community chose Luger's and suggested that we should go to Peter Luger's. And it's the bigger brand name, I guess. You know, it has that old school charm. You know, they don't take even credit cards. You have to pay in cash. It's an interesting place. I guess it's more eclectic in a way. Eric L, for those potentially ensnared in flex culture, should young folks buy luxury watches first and then sort out buying a home residence, or get a home first? I believe in home first, but please discuss. This could be an interesting topic to discuss. I hope I will have some people on the panel. If not, I will offer my opinion as well. Hoffman Smash says there's plenty of nights for both. Why not? Captain Kirk, Fury will fight Ngannou with MMA gloves. Look, I mean, I don't mean to sound like I'm a purist, but a boxing champion should stay with boxing. Fury is one of the best. I want to see him in more boxing fights. I want to see him become the undisputed heavyweight champion in boxing first. He can do MMA after he retires. Big Meat says, it's my way of saying hi to Turkey. Turkey Vulture, 49's fine. The Chicken Ranch is my scene. Respect. Jay Gray, afraid to leave the island, Thomas. Yeah, Peter Luger you'll have to leave Manhattan. Thomas Broadband, what is the NYC restaurant and dates? The restaurant is Peter Luger's. I think, now that I'm thinking about it, maybe because they have already shared the restaurant, maybe they're keeping the dates, a little under the wraps until the very, the very day of it or the day before, right? So we are not exposed to some absurd threat or situation. Maybe that's the reason, or maybe they already have a date announced. I don't know. I can't speak to it just yet. Thomas Broadband, how many people? I think these are still details that are getting worked out. C8RO, when we get wiser and older, we get humble and use decorum and not use forums to be obnoxious, but I'm guilty at times. Look, I'm sure each and every one of us put their foot in their mouth at least once. Um, all we can do is take a step back and self-reflect first, right? Before we start blaming others. But for some, who think self-reflection consists of looking in the mirror and admiring themselves, that's too much to ask for. Thomas votes for Keynes. It's easier to get there. Kyle Broflovsky, could you beat Joe Rogan in a kickboxing bout? No, I think he would wipe the floor with me. Paul, nice to see you, man. Upvote. Yes, thank you so much. Can anyone beat Terence Crawford? I want to see that welterweight undisputed championship. Terence Crawford is the welterweight WBO champion, 147 pounds. And Errol Spence holds the 3 other belts, so IBF, WBA now, and also the WBC. I'd like to see that fight. My money and my my guess is that Crawford would win that fight. That Crawford would actually knock out Errol Spence mid to late rounds. Moritz, I don't agree with a lot of what Robin DeAngelo does, but Oshin certainly suffers from white fragility. He actually fits her definition of a racist. No comment, but thanks for sharing, Moritz, because I don't wanna keep beating on a dead horse. I have already said everything that I need to say. If it comes up, because certain people are asking for a confrontation, I'm always more than happy and proud to stand up for myself and for my people. But I think I appreciate the way you put it. I think actually he's a very fragile person. C8RO, roof overhead, food for family, then pleasure in things as watches. Yeah, I mean, look, going back to that question, actually, I completely agree with what you said, C8RO. As a principle, of course, it's always shelter, it's always, of course, subsistence and nourishment, and then everything else, right? Who can argue with that? But here's the thing. I basically, by the way, I pinned the link, so if you would like to, I will keep sending it out once every so often. But I pinned the link, so if you want to join the stream, just click it. Yeah. When it comes to the current situation, though, a lot of young people, whether they subscribe to the flex culture or not, they have a very hard time, especially if they live in large metropolitan centers, to actually buy a residence, buy a home or a condo, or any other sort of home, because it might be out of reach, because it might put them into crippling debt, and kind of really make them much less mobile and make their career for the foreseeable future much less modular and flexible. So I respect people who make other choices for themselves, but the principles that C8RO outlined remain the same, right? You still have to be responsible for yourself, and responsible for your family, and responsible for people who depend on you. And if you are doing that, there's no reason not to spend some money also on yourself. And there's nothing wrong with parking, at the very least, some of your money in watches as well. Thomas says, I've never put my foot in my mouth. I'm not very flexible. TMI. Captain Kirk says, Joe Rogan has an amazing back kick. It could kill. I don't disagree. It could kill me, that's for sure. Eric L, thanks, C8. Yes, I think that was a very, very valuable point that he shared. So let's bring it up again. Roof overhead, food for family, then pleasure in things such as watches. Beautiful. Mr. Zoso, welcome back. Subscribe for the man who kept the ship up afloat when Arch was in London. I appreciate it. I'm happy to see that people recognize that. GB Vol, are there ever knockouts in the small welterweight division? Yes. In fact, Terence Crawford has knocked out every single one of his opponents since he stepped up from 140 to 147. So it happens in all weight divisions, but one of the reasons that I really enjoy weight divisions below 160, below middleweight, is because I feel there's a lot more technique, much more volume in terms of the number of punches thrown. And yes, the fights tend to go for the whole distance more often. You're absolutely right. But of course, there are knockouts, and they're not as rare as you might think. What are my thoughts on Mike the Snake? I love Mike the Snake. I think sometimes he goes on for too long, but when you tell him that, he pulls back. I think he's a very good panelist, and I hope he's there to stay. Thomas says, buy watches, rent a home, invest in crypto, accumulate debt, sell watches, and repeat. That's another perspective. Hey, at the end of the day, I can't tell another man how to what to do with his money. So, or any other person, honestly, man, woman, whoever you are, I can't tell you what to do with your money. That's another idea. GB Vol, I was going to be buying a condo in downtown LA, but the 1100 HOA was too much. Yeah, you see, sometimes there's a reason why people can't invest in real estate. 49's fine. Don't go into debt for watches. I've always paid cash unless you put it on a card for rewards and paid off completely without paying interest. I think that's also very wise. And oftentimes when you can deal in cash, as shady as it might sound for some, you always get the best deals. It's the case in the secondary market. It's even the case with authorized dealers too. Any business that has that has these overhead costs appreciates cash flow. So it also helps getting you better deals. But yes, that's one way of making sure that you actually have what it takes to buy a certain luxury item. Jay Gray, save enough money to buy a Rolex and move to Goa for a decade. That works. 49's fine. Buy high, sell low. Rumi is Rumi. You have to be a little more specific. Everyone likes some Rumi because his verse is all-encompassing, all-inclusive, speaks to many different kinds of people from different religious backgrounds, different ethnicities, different periods of time, right? So if you ask a specific question, I'm happy to try to talk about it. Not really my forte, so to speak, but hey. Yes, Jay Gray is excited. Did I just see Rumi? You did, my friend, and I hope we'll have another question coming. DP says, I agree 100%. Thank you again for your recognition. Turkey Vulture says, can you ever be a one-watch man? And if you could, what watch would that be? I could be, and I was for a little while before I got my root beer right here in college. Um, my mom gave me, when I was 18, my dad's Submariner, and that was my first luxury watch. And I think I can still be happy if I had to get rid of everything else, and if that was my only watch. Have we heard of Shams of Tabriz? Yes, that was Rumi's interlocutor and lover, actually. Eric, hi.
How you doing, Lord? Can you hear
Good.
me?
Nice to see you. I don't think we have ever been in a panel together, so I appreciate that you actually jumped on.
Yeah, we have not. Thank you so much. You've been very gracious to respond to all my comments on Archie stream as well as your own. And I'm reporting from Tampa Bay, Florida. As you can see, it's pretty dark over here, so
You
it's
mentioned
late.
You're a little ahead of me.
Yeah, a little bit.
Thanks for being here.
Yeah, absolutely. So I asked you the difficult question, right? So I figured I should come on and kind of talk about that a little bit.
Of course.
It seems like social media is just fueling young people to pack something on the wrist, right?
Yes.
And you see all these shots of people with untainted skin. It's never seen the harsh heat of the sunlight before. Got to put a Rolex on there. Got to do it. Got to do it. Got to do it. And so the question becomes: these are expensive things, right?
Right.
Do you hustle, save, and dump your funds into that first before you invest in something that is more long-term tangible? Not that watches are not,
right?
But do you make that investment before investing in a home? And I think a lot of people are being misguided by this concept, this race, this hustle. I mean, we're in a TPG culture of
Yeah, I mean, I know you are just using that name because it has become kind of the symbol of that culture. Of course, he's not guilty of it just by himself. He's really more of a symptom than the cause of a lot of this culture you are describing. Not to excuse him in any way, don't take me wrong, but I just want to say that there are so many like him, even in our little community, that we can multiply the examples. For me, here's the thing, that first of all, a Rolex or a luxury watch is not the only expression of that flex culture that you're describing. There's so many other luxury items, collaborations and whatever else that people line up to get and spend, again, hundreds and hundreds and sometimes thousands of dollars to get. And I think a luxury watch stands in that shadowy realm between a real investment that can be a conduit for generational wealth and a pure luxury item that might not even last your lifetime, maybe even not even 3 years, right? Maybe it will be disposable in a single cycle of the fashion season. So I think it is, I feel that you're feeling pretty strongly about this, and I think we have a part to play, perhaps, not necessarily to educate others in a patronizing and maybe paternalistic way, but at least putting the word out there as you are doing, that let's not get caught up in this culture. Let's not trick ourselves that investing in watches is more than parking your money for the most part, and that there can be more tangible and more long-lasting forms of investment. I think it's important to put that out there, because we can't just, disregard social media, not participate in it because of the flex culture. We have to put other messages out there to counter this, don't you think?
Absolutely. And I think one of the things that people maybe are being blindsided by is that nature of liquidity, right? And we see that in the market right now, where we're hearing now that dealers don't want to buy Rolex, right? And maybe it's not Rolex. Maybe it's they don't want to buy watches. They don't want to take on inventory that they're not sure that they're going to be able to move, because the market is kind of in free fall. Is it doing this? Is it doing this? We're not quite sure, right? I don't, and as someone who's a buyer, you're not sure that you want to buy if something is falling, right? And so it's just one of those things. And I don't know, it's an interesting topic, because I think it's something not for most of us watch enthusiasts, but a lot of the casual observers. I think it's more of a topic for them.
Because people started writing about it in mainstream media, as you know. I think, was it a Financial Times article that suggested that, especially in the Chinese market, people were investing more and more in watches and less in real estate? It was either Wall Street Journal or Financial Times.
Absolutely. Yeah, they have the most massive middle class right now. This is something that's been kind of upwelling and developing for decades. And now you have millions and millions of people who, for the first time and forever, have a lot of money at their expense to make these types of purchases. And in my opinion, that's kind of what's driven a lot of the market. But things are changing. We're in a very different world. There's war. We're also going to be looking at grain shortages. That's completely a different topic, but that's something that's going to be hitting Europe probably in a month, and it'll probably sustain for another year or so. So it's going to be pretty interesting to see. I think it's going to be a wild ride. I think people better put the seatbelts on. And it just makes me wonder, is luxury watches where people need to be investing right now, or is it real estate? Now, mind you, real estate has gone completely nuts here in the U.S.
Right.
I'm here in Tampa Bay. This is the hottest market, one of the hottest markets here in the U.S. My home value has doubled in the past 2 years, which is completely ridiculous. If I was on the market right now, I probably couldn't afford it. If I could even get the bid to go through, because there would be a foreign investor snatching it up to rent it out and make profits and make a killing. So it's just that we're in a very insane market. And it just makes me wonder, are the youth being pushed in the right direction? Are they being steered in the right direction with regards to their funds as it pans out for the future?
Yeah, I think maybe I'm prevaricating a little too much, but I feel like there are worse things that a lot of people do with their money than buying a luxury watch. But it is an uncertain time, right? That's the reason why the market is, at the very least, experiencing a kind of correction when it comes to the secondary market in Rolex, especially, but other luxury watches as well. I think, really what people should realize is that this might not go on forever. The trends in the market change. I remember at some point, a lot of the vintage watches, and I'm not talking about very unique examples or limited production models or anything, but a lot of the vintage Rolex watches had caught up and even surpassed contemporary Rolexes sold at retail. And all of a sudden, the market turned for some legitimate reasons, right? Because the number of enthusiasts increased. A lot of people were not knowledgeable enough. There was a lot of shady modifications and Frankensteining going on in the vintage market. So people lost a lot of trust that they might have had in certain vintage dealers, and they moved on to contemporary watches at retail and even to independent emerging brands. So we can experience a lot of a different kind of turn in the market at any point in time. So there's no certainty. There are certain brands that you can bank on, but the most they can give you in short term, at least, is just parking your money. In mid term, you might experience some gains. In long term, you might actually make money. But once again, does that mean it's the best investment? And most of us, we're obsessed with our watches. Most of us won't want to let them go. And even when we do it, we usually end up rolling it into our next watch, right? So for us to speak of watches as investment, even at that level, sounds absurd to me. But again, you are kind of coming back to what I said about the real estate market. I don't want to use this phrase over and over again, but it's hard. It's hard for a lot of young people to actually invest in the real estate market because, first of all, they don't have that kind of money. They don't have those sorts of stable earnings as the older generation of middle-class Americans had. And if they do, they want to be a little more flexible with their resources. And the reason people like watches is precisely that, right? When you bank $250,000 in some hot real estate, you can't move that money like this anytime you want, right? With watches, you can break them up into a dozen different pieces, and some will increase, some will keep their value, some will perhaps lose a little bit, but you can always cash out and move on to something else, whether in watches or not.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to keep pace with real estate as it scales up and up and up and up, because I can say, years and years ago, yeah, you need $20,000 to go put a down payment on a house. That looks a lot different nowadays, right? The landscape has just changed that much. If we rewind and take it back to the watches, we're at a situation where it's kind of a double-edged sword, depending on what you're buying for. Kind of reinforces buy what you love and wear what you love. If you're buying what you love, you'll never go wrong, because over time, sure, the price is most likely it's going to go up, right? You're probably better off buying it now than you are 20 years from now, if you're young enough and you're going to survive, right? But on the other side of that blade, if you are the flipper, you're in the danger zone, right?
Yes.
And that's kind of the situation that we're at now. At least that seems to me that way.
Yeah, because people have put a lot of money in some hyped up models, and we don't know if they will retain that kind of value in the short term, but not even in the long term. That's the thing. Of course, certain discontinued models when it comes to Rolex, I understand, but will, for example, a Pepsi GMT or a Rolex GMT Master 2 always retail always go for this kind of money in the secondary market? I don't know. I'm not sure. George Voorhees, my friend who lives in China, told me they're buying up luxury watches, no corrections in China. People have lost a ton in real estate and now see watches as liquid assets. I think it's also the fact that, it's people use diamonds for this purpose for generations. I think sometimes it's a more or less legal and practical way of moving money over borders. So people use watches for that oftentimes, and people from all over the world. This is not just China or Russia. So there's that to be said. I think people like the fact that you can just, pack up and leave, the marathon man style, so to speak. Of course, you might lose your Rolex just to make a phone call, if you know what I mean. But it that scene tells you something, right? When you have an item that's so universally recognizable, and that can actually provide value even in the stickiest situation, you don't want to give up on it so easily.
Absolutely. No, I think we've come a long way as a society from our grandparents who used to stuff cash in the mattress, right? We're more thinking on our feet in terms of, where can you put your money into assets, so to speak, where you can move them around and things that'll retain value and all of that sort of thing. But hey, Lord, I want to thank you. I can't stay long because late over here. I'm a family man. I'm probably waking up the girl and the wife over there, but I appreciate it. Thanks for
Yeah,
letting me come on and have that chat because I know it was a really loaded question that there was a lot to unpack there, and so
I appreciate it. Thank you for posing the question and coming on to explain it as well.
absolutely. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Eric.
Take care.
Bye. Yeah, thank you, Eric. I appreciate you coming on. Guys, if you have been listening to us and enjoying the content, please don't forget to upvote. I really appreciate it. We have been talking about watches and whether they actually can count as investments. My very commonsensical take on the situation is that they are luxury watches of certain recognizable brands. You say Holy Trinity, Big Four, Big Five, Seven. George has some info here. My friend said, his friend from China, he can't find any Lange, Vacheron Constantin, Patek Philippe, Audemars Piguet, or any Rolex, even in the secondary market. Right. Sometimes we take globalization for granted, right? And we forget about unique dynamics of different kinds of markets that have their own priorities. So, yeah, just because certain values are tanking in the North American market does not mean that it's the case everywhere else. I know that a lot of Rolexes are trending for very high in the Japanese market as well, and the secondary market these days. GB Vol, so do sports cards. Yes, look at what Michael Jordan's RC did in the last decade, from 800 to 8,000. George Voorhees, Moritz says to George, this was the case a year ago, not now. Speaking as someone who lives in China, Chinese consumers are heavily debt-ridden. Those with wealth spent out of China, not within. Good evening. Good evening to you too, George. Welcome to the channel. Captain Kirk says social media and its impact is inescapable, so it's definitely controlled, and to that degree, no sense of self outside its measurement and effect, thus destroyed. It can be very soul crushing. I'm actually quite happy that I didn't have to grow up in this day and age where social media is omnipresent. I'm sure it's very difficult for young people to navigate their life that is mediated through so many different devices that we basically carry as prosthetics everywhere. Thomas Broadband says there's a dark element in the watch world moving wealth. Scotty Clark says flexing is a young man's game. Old geezers flexing is creepy. 49's fine. Rolex is like gold, but better. Jay Gray says the Chinese real estate boom was a classic pump and dump. They're wise now, tangible assets in hand. The current lockdowns might affect the market short term. Thomas Broadbent, wealth in watches is lighter than gold and cash. Yes. And also, again, one of the reasons I think that these sorts of luxury items are more popular than most is they're very easy to carry around and they're very easy to flex, right? You can't always you can't walk into a nightclub or a bar or a fancy restaurant with your car, right? But you can wear whatever it is that you're wearing on your wrist and flex with that, right? So I think there's a reason that a lot of younger people like very out there, hyped up, um, and luxury timepieces, because it's something you can wear on your wrist and wear anywhere and everywhere. Captain Kirk says both property and watches are too expensive. Absolutely. Even in retail, watches have gotten so expensive in the last decade. And there's almost an obligatory 10% price increase in all the big brands every year, sometimes more than once a year. 49's fine. Thomas, I'm 28. Thomas was saying earlier that he didn't use any drugs whatsoever. More power to you, man. And 49's fine was saying that he would rather invest in watches than waste his money on drugs or weed. The bars, clubs, drugs, etc. Such a waste, man. Investing in your 20s is crucial to your future, and investing in yourself first and foremost. That's well put, but I'm sure you have got that covered. You're a smart guy. Thank you to both of you. Thank you for being here. Marathon Man swapped for a taxi, not a call. I think he gave that to the taxi driver, and he said, I'll just have to make a call, and then the taxi just drove off. But it's been a while since I watched that movie, so feel free to correct me on that, Scotty. But at the end of the day, I think he would have lost. He lost that watch for making that phone call. But you're probably right. For nice fine. I hope prices drop significantly so I can add another piece or two. George Voorhees says, just look at the Hermes Birkin bags, outperformed real estate, stock market, and even Bitcoin. I can't argue against that, right? I can't argue with a fact that you're pointing out, but I also don't know how to look into the future. But yes, I think those ultra desirable luxury items that are almost timeless, a Birkin bag, a Kelly bag, a Rolex watch, a Patek watch, I think those will be desirable for the foreseeable future. But then again, anything else happens that's announces a larger, all-encompassing economic crisis, a major depression, then of course, who knows? But things staying more or less normal over long term, of course, the ultra desirable, the very hyped up pieces, if you can buy them at retail, are always a safe way to park your money and even make some money. But again, are you getting out of them anytime soon, right? Because why does it matter that your watch quadrupled in value unless you are selling it and using it for something else? Jay Gray, should we ask the dead in Ukraine about their watches? It's heavy. It's heavy. It's heavy. Yeah, sometimes it's hard to go on. One feels very vain and shallow, but life goes on, and we just have to keep the people in our minds. We have to continue helping anyone and everyone who is stricken by war, and who is dispossessed and who is dislocated in the best way that we can. Um, COVID compression and consumption of social media has caused this. I think someone must do a study at some point of how social media uh, and internet shopping completely, like online shopping, has completely reached a fever pitch during the lockdowns. I think there's something to be said about that. Jay Gray says there's a dark element on this planet. Absolutely. It's not just limited to the world of watches. Eric L. Thanks again, Lord. I'm always better when edited. No, you're a great man. I wish you had more time to stay on. Um, I would have loved to hear more from you, and I hope we'll get that chance in the future. Aussie expat can't fly international with gold. That's absolutely true. 49 Swine, what's your ultimate three-piece Hangabosta combo meal deal? Amazing. All right. 5513 sub, no liner. Sorry, no date, two liner. Reverso grand date, and a Rolex GMT Master. I think that's it. That's it. I just wanted to choose three that I already have, rather than building something from scratch. I might have a different answer for that. Guys, if you want to join the conversation, the link is pinned, but I'm also posting it again. Aussie Expat, welcome back. If you have been watching the show and enjoying the content, please don't forget to upvote and subscribe if you haven't already, and spread the word. It will really help me a lot, and I would be eternally grateful to you if you spread the word and help me get to 1,000 subscribers. Check out the other videos, help me increase my watch hours. I hope you enjoy the content. Obviously, with all that, I'm targeting monetization. In the meantime, if you want to encourage me, please consider making a PayPal donation, and that is connected to my main contact email address, lordhellespontv@gmail.com, lordhellespontv@gmail.com. You can see it right below. If you want to send me a question, make suggestions for future content, you want a personalized video, a collection review where you can jump on the live stream, where we can also learn more about you and your life and your lifestyle through your watches, I would love to do that for you. If you want me to look into a brand's history, if you want me to talk about the history and genealogy of a particular model, if you want me to guide you through an upcoming watch purchase, send me an email. Make a nominal donation on PayPal, and I would be more than happy to make a personalized video for you, to dedicate a live stream for you. Gas says a lot of big social media apps became very popular years ago while I was still in high school. Very toxic. I can imagine. Some of these things were becoming just emerging. I think Facebook just came out when I was still in college, actually. Before that, we had MySpace, and that's like transistor radio, compared to what we have in terms of the penetration of social media into our daily lives today. So I consider myself very fortunate to have somehow been formed and matured before social media completely took over our lives. Turkey Vulture, I agree. This war going on in the background feels eerie. Yes. It's kind of a portent of doom almost, right? Because we're all sensing that it's not going to be contained in that. And quite frankly, the world has been up in flames since the end of the Second World War. Cold War has only been cold in the middle of Europe, right? Everywhere else in the world, actually, there were many proxy wars being fought. And we have not seen the end of it. And I'm not very hopeful, to be honest. Angelic Slayer, welcome back. So nice to see you. Yeah, sorry, the mood is a little down since we were talking about war, but we have to recognize the human catastrophes that are going around us. We have to be able to say something about them. We have to be able to mourn the lives that are being lost. Big Mac, how are you doing?
I don't know, Lord. I don't know.
Tell me, talk to me, Joe.
I just had this weird experience. Make a long story short, I went to and got a pizza, and I was gonna swing by my old man's place to pick up a few things before I came back home to my place. And Lord, I was followed. I was followed.
You were spotted.
Yeah. They followed me all the way up to halfway up the driveway, and then they stopped, and then they turned around and disappeared. So
Do
I
you,
don't
do
know
you
how I
think
feel about that.
do you think they were following you because of your watch potentially?
No, God, no. But I don't know. I mean, they followed me for. I mean, like the town that they came from was like a good 20-minute, 20 to 30 minute drive. And that's I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that. So, needless to say, I locked up my old man's house and made sure everything was in order. I grabbed my wristwatches and came back to my place. So,
Okay,
hmm.
fine. I'm glad you're safe now, and I'm glad um, you have packed up, some of your valuables, at least your watches. And look, if you need to stay on the line for any reason, I'm happy to be here with you, and I'm happy to be there for you, Joe.
No, I'll be fine. I'll be fine. I mean, I wasn't in any immediate danger. I had Betty with me, the 40 cal, so I was fine.
All right, all right. I'm glad you're feeling safe now, at least. But yeah, that can't feel good. So Turkey Vulture's three-piece Hunger Buster meal deal is 1655, 1016, 1665, and Persol glasses. I love this Rolex uh, all Rolex collection. So it's a so-called Steve McQueen Explorer 2, 1016, the 4-digit, of course, 36 millimeter Explorer, and 1665. Hopefully, it's a double red. It's a Sea Dweller, Dun, and a pair of Persols. Whoa, who wouldn't want that? What would be your three-watch collection?
Three-piece combo meal deal. Are we talking like strictly Rolex, or are we talking outside the box?
No, look, what I did was I basically reduced my collection, but you can start from scratch. You can do it in any which way you want. You can do it all Rolex, you can do it no Rolex, you can do it as kind of culling down the herd from your own collection, or start from scratch.
Yes. Um, Hmm. So let me think here. Uh, I think I'd have to go with the Tony Soprano special, Date 8, Yellow Gold, um, as the fuck off piece. Then I'd have, what would I have? I think, you know what? I'm going to change it up a bit. I think I would buy the Seamaster 300M, even though it looks like a brick on my wrist. 300M, perfect beater watch. Can't go wrong with it, especially with the 10% discount on it. And then for a dress watch, I'd have to go with the Cartier Santos again.
Yes, yes. I think, to me, that watch will. I know we went through your entire collection, and you have many sentimentally important pieces. But to me, when I think of Joe, I think of the Cartier Santos. So I'm glad you went with it as part of the three-piece. Because it's the kind of watch that clearly makes you feel differently about yourself. It's the kind of watch that motivates you to put yourself together in a different way and to be the best version of yourself, almost. I like that watch on you, man. It's great.
Yeah, it's definitely a piece. I don't believe it'll ever leave rotation. Now it might change. It might go to two-tone eventually, but I definitely will have a Cartier always in the roster.
I see. Yeah, Santos specifically, right?
Yes.
George, now is the time to look at watches that haven't gone crazy in the gray market. For example, Lange seems like a great value. For that level, I think they're still a great value. They have been under 6K watch. They have been producing under 6K watches every year. I mean, less than 6,000 watches every year, I should say, to be very clear. George says, just talked to my Lange AD today, told me that they will raise prices by 8 to 10% on May 1st. And they are making this year 4,000 to 4,500 watches rather than 5,500 exactly. Clocktagon, why are you rebel streaming against? That's very fun. Rebel streaming, to clarify again, is only against the OG. The Pontiff streams, everything else in the world stops. Anyone else, it's fair game. C8RO, in the 90s, my best friend ate ramen and potatoes. Kids changed me into an unselfish goof I used to be. I have friends with expensive cars and no gas money. That happens. We have all heard the stories of the guy with a two-tone Rolex whose card gets denied at the grocery store. But yeah, I can see that. The world has been in a spiraling descent, Jay Gray says, since the end of days of Asheta Shemesh. I think we have been, since we evolved into human beings, we have been going to hell in a handbasket, if you ask me, Jay Gray. I'm just as pessimistic and nihilistic as you, it seems. So I can't disagree. 4.9's fine. Wow, honestly, good for Lange. They're worth it, in my opinion, and deserve to get more for their brand. Absolutely. What do you think about Lange, Joe? Is there a Lange in your future?
Probably not. I mean, I have nothing against Lange. I've actually seen a couple of the pieces used at my Rolex AD, and I think they're fantastic watches, but they're also the size of a dinner plate for me. So as much as I'd love to have, I wouldn't say I would love to have a Lange. That'd be a lie. But to at least experience a Lange, I don't think I could. I don't think I could pull off a Lange. I just don't have. I've got little twigs for wrists, so that kind of takes me off the brand, personally.
Okay. Joe, I gotta love the honesty. So I can't argue with that. For me, there's a lot that I love. I think since that asymmetric dial of Lange 1 has been so iconic for the brand, I would love to have one. I would love to have a Lange 1 with a complication like Moonface, for example. I would love that. But I would honestly, I would love any Lange. I also like their Saxonia series.
I was about to ask you on that. What are your thoughts on that? Then Timmy calling it the poor man's Lange.
Uh, I mean, look, I don't like that expression to begin with. Poor man's X. But yeah, because look, if you can afford a Lange, any Lange, you're not a poor man, that's for sure. And you can call yourself very fortunate. Every brand has their iconic pieces of design, but some are just too quirky for people. Before I actually went out of my way to check it out, even though I always wanted to get a reverso, if I didn't see the grand date on the pontiff's wrist, and if I didn't go out of my way to handle as many different reversos as I could, I would have also been initially put off by that design. Saxonia is a much more balanced, much more classical design. Some people aren't so captivated by the big date complication, big date window. People like the simplicity and balance of Saxonia. So I don't think it's cheaper usually compared to.
Yeah, I was about to say they're not too expensive in a twisted sense of form. I see in my Minneapolis dealer, Wixon's Jewelers, guys. Who do I recommend for wristwatches, pre-owned, and Patek Philippe and Rolex watches? Guys, visit Wixon's Jewelers of Minneapolis, Minnesota. Ask for John Carter. He'll hook you up. He'll treat you right, give you the full service. I highly recommend them. Anyways, I seen they had a saxophone for 18 grand, white dial of 20, want to say it was 2018, somewhere in that wheelhouse, which I didn't think, I thought that was pretty cheap for a line.
Honestly, look, people, of course, a lot of people will swear by Patek Philippe Calatravas when it comes to a simple dress watch, but I think I wouldn't mind the Saxonia myself. I think that's a great watch. It's simple, it's beautiful. It's just as beautiful on the case back. It's just as beautiful to look at that movement as it is to look at the simplicity of the dial. I think that's a great deal. If you want a thin dress watch at that level of quality, why not? Dan T, thank you so much, my Macedonian brother. Happy Easter again. It's very generous of you. In lieu of super chats, since I'm not monetized yet, just sent a small PayPal.
Yeah, I was about to say, Lord, don't think of me as a dick for not PayPaling you, but as soon as you get your super chats, then I'll be one of the first to send you a super chat.
No worries, no worries. You know that if one doesn't like to, if one doesn't like a certain form of contribution, if you can't, if I haven't yet gained your trust, if I haven't yet won you over as a viewer, if I haven't yet provided you the kind of content, the quality that you have been expecting, no worries. But if you feel that it is right to contribute at this point in time with PayPal, by all means. If not, trust me, I won't hold it against you. And especially Joe.
Do you have Venmo, Lord? I feel like you should have Venmo because honestly, like, long story short, not that I'm trying to make excuses, but so I have a mom and pop bank, and they parted ways with PayPal. And every time I send something PayPal, like first in the morning or within minutes, I get a phone call from the bank saying that they locked down my account and everything else.
No worries, my friend. It's that's quite all right. Again, Joe has been here since the very beginning. One of my first guests. He was generous with his time and with his collection to let me actually review it, talk to me about it, know him more. And I consider you a friend, Joe. You don't have to say anything to me about anything. You're always
Well, I'm just saying, it's just because whatever. It's just like I said. As soon as you get monetized, I'll
Of
be
course,
more than happy to send you.
people were worried about you. Let's go back to that. That's really scary. Moritz says, Gas says, did you get the plates? Jimmy says, WTF, call the police.
No, I didn't get the plates. So my old man's driveway is like about a mile long, probably a little bit more than that. So like they stopped like halfway, and they kind of hid behind the grove, and I was already up at my place. So I didn't get plates. I did call my local authorities here and ask, like, because look, I'll be honest. I was staring on my phone, looking at someone else's live stream, looking at the comments, and it's a pretty windy day here. So I thought maybe, oh shit, someone thought like I was drunk driving because I was kind of swerving a little bit on the road, something like that. So I did call the police asking, like, did anybody call me in? They said nope. So it's just it's one of those bizarre things that it definitely is bizarre.
Do you have security cameras in this place or at your dad's?
No, honestly, I mean, I probably shouldn't be saying this on air, but
let's not
out
even
in the
talk.
country, a lot of people don't lock their doors. Honestly, it's a lot of just unlocked doors and open windows type thing because nobody really bothers us that much.
As Jimmy says, be safe, Joe. I know you know your environment better than we can, and we are probably not in a place to recommend you anything. But be safe. Make sure you take all the security measures that you consider necessary and appropriate. We want you to be safe, of course. Louis V350. If you had to get 4 modern Rolexes, which ones would they be? Okay. From an AD at retail. Can I go first?
Actually, Lord, I want to make this a little bit more interesting.
Okay.
You can only grab one. No, you can only grab 2 steel stunners.
Okay. I'm fine with that. All right. I'm gonna go with ST43 steel stunner, red writing. Sorry. I will go with white gold Daytona on Oyster Flex. Any dial. I'm not asking for much. No meteorite. Hey, we're dreaming, right? I will get Yachtmaster two-tone with chocolate brown dial. And I will get the Sermont.
Yes, the Sermont. The Tim Wright special.
Yes, why not? What about you, Joe? Same criterion? Yeah? No.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Make a fair play. You know what? I'm going to be one of the guys who goes against the grain. Although I don't know if it's going that much against the grain, but it would be the full rose gold GMT root beer, if you will.
Okay. Nice.
And then the Yachtmaster two-tone, the one that I've got right now. And then one that I'm actually considering right now is kind of off the cuff a little bit, but it would be a stainless steel Datejust smooth bezel 41 mil.
Okay. What kind of dial on that?
Well, we'll discuss that because that's going to be an interesting conversation here with my invitation to the VIP event at my boutique, and then I would round off with a Date Submariner.
So you are basically implying that you might be getting a Datejust 41 with a smooth bezel.
It's a high possibility. Yeah.
Okay, good. Well, good to hear. Yeah, I'm happy with the choices I made, but are we saving this conversation for a little later, or do you want to share?
I mean, whenever. I mean.
Okay, let's talk about this. What options do you have then for the smooth bezel Datejust 41? What are your options at your AD?
Well, I suppose, long story short here. So I was invited. I made the VIP list for the first time ever with my girls here, and it's an opportunity. Well, they didn't. It was implied faintly that I would have a potential chance to buy some of the new models that are being released. So I was thinking perhaps if they have it, the green dial, not the honeycomb green, but the flat green dial on oyster steel smooth bezel, 41 now.
Nice. That's. I mean, Rolex with green dial. It might sound predictable, but for me, it's always exciting. George's.
If I can't get that, I would get the rhodium. I would probably pursue the rhodium dial.
Nice. George's three-piece would be all Lange 1815, Lange Datograph, and Lange Odysseus in white, all from the greatest watchmaker in the world, he says. Amazing pieces, can't argue. C8RO, I'm in San Diego where gas prices are the highest in America. We have Tesla charging stations all around. Thomas Broadbent says, Explorer 39, yours, like yours, Joe.
Men's size.
Zenith Movado Astronic Lobster Vacheron 222. That's the Tony Montana watch, as I call it. I love the Vacheron 222 in full yellow gold. 49 Spine says, need the Datograph. Full on John, I think my 124060 no date sub, Tudor Diet Pepsi, and a Sapphire Sandwich. Very balanced. Diver, GMT, Chrono, all classics, more or less. Tudor to me is today's Rolex by now. At least it's in the realm of possibility for most, which is what Rolex initially at least provided. So as good as anything there. Datograph is the grail of grails, Turkey Vulture says. Eric, good night. Thank you so much for being part of the conversation today. We really appreciate it. Messaging matters. I understand it only costs about $3 to $4 to fully charge an electronic vehicle. We don't have the infrastructure yet in my area, but at least our gasoline prices are down about 46 cents per gallon from a few weeks ago. Sorry. C8RO, let's talk watches. You had me going into midlife crisis contemplation. Yeah, existential angst, man. It's all over the place. 0.36 actually was a typo. That's how the gas prices have been dropping around. Messaging matters. George Voorhees, absolutely. That Datograph is the finest chronograph ever made. Patricia Teague, thanks for dropping by. So many streams going on at the same time, hard to keep on top of them all. My apologies. I'm just trying to run mine. Guilty as charged. Gas says Calatrava is my grail watch. I appreciate Calatravas. I'm kind of intrigued by this weekly calendar. Have you seen that watch? Or have you?
I'll be honest, I don't know Patek's catalog, I don't know Patek's catalog that well, to be honest.
So this is basically a new complication they came up with, and it's in a steel Calatrava case, weekly calendar.
Oh, okay. So this is the one that Diego got offered.
Yes, yes. I don't know. I find this very, very intriguing. Actually, I mean, it's quite expensive, of course, for a steel watch, but it's a steel Patek, so they're gonna ask for an arm and a leg. It's gonna have a premium on it.
What
So
is that, like a true white dial, or is that like an eggshell white, or is it like a
it's like
mother's milk white?
yeah, it's an eggshell white, um, and it has this kind of quirky uh, font, like kind of a handwritten vibe going on.
Yeah, I see that. Personally, I would hate this watch because I mean, I've got old man eyes, so I mean, it looks like it would be hard to read now.
Right.
From a complication standpoint, I think it's well done. I think it's a cracker of a piece, to be honest.
Yeah.
Although my only complaint would be to say I wish they kind of would have. I think this would have looked better, honestly, if it would have been a cream color, you know, like on the other Pateks or like on a Grand Seiko GMT, where they just make it like this really pale cream color. I think that would have made it pop off a little bit better, especially with that red indices.
Okay. I mean, look, for me, I think, I don't know. Again, I might be a little biased because I do like Calatrava's period, but I think it's a very interesting blend of the traditional Calatrava design, those sword hands and the lovely, indexes, just very classic, but has a quirky complication, very unusual way of expressing it, at least in terms of as far as Pateks go. Um, I I like it. I like it, and it's a steel Calatrava, which has doesn't usually see this sort of um, production, and of course it's 37 to 60 before tax. So it's
Well, even if it wasn't a Calatrava aside, it's still a very interesting design that you wouldn't see very often. And I
yeah,
think that's what makes it very attractive.
absolutely. The original A. Lange und Söhne Langematik are really nice with their micro rotors. C8RO, thank you so much. You are being too generous, but I always take a compliment. Thank you so much. We're glad you're safe. Round up the posse, Joe. Louis V 350, yes, we love that avatar. Archie drinking right from the bottle. Root beer GMT in all rose gold is a heavy hitter. Absolutely, that was a good choice, Joe. Sky Dweller white, Destro green GMT, Sea Dweller yellow 41. These are Thomas's choices for the 4. Thomas says $5.17 per gallon diesel. My God. The handwritten font for days and months looks very childish, in my opinion. I respect your opinion. Messaging, I think it's a very interesting touch because everything else is so classical about the design. So I find it a very unique piece, and I'm sure they're going to discontinue it quite soon. And this is already a piece that goes for 2-3 times the retail price in the market. So I can't imagine what's going to go. Oh yeah, this is the actual complication with a perpetual calendar. Too young to wear, too old to see, right? When you kind of some of these complicated pieces, you're already too old to figure out what is going on the dial. Angelic Slayer says, that's the one with a hand-drawn font. It was mentioned. Yes. Look, I mean, I had heard of it. I had seen it, not in person, but I had seen it on these websites and on Patek's website, but I hadn't looked very carefully at it before it was mentioned like that. And I don't know, it somehow caught my attention. Who knows what's going to happen? Thomas says it was initially handwritten always wanted the dial to be individually handwritten, unique. Well, that would be something, right? But
That would take forever. I mean, that would take what, a year just to crank out one watch, and not to mention you'd have to have the same person. You'd have to get it done in one day, wouldn't you? You'd have one person sit down and do one dial, because you wouldn't want it inconsistent, would you?
No, of course not. But then, for example, the charm of the kind of world time with that cloisonné dial that Jamie has, for example, is that not only from one to other, one metal to another, they have different focus on the part of the planet, but since it's drawn or filled in rather in the enamel from those golden lines, it's always unique to the individual artist. So it's almost every piece is one of a kind, and they're all meticulously done. But of course, there's a huge premium for that. I think it's almost, what is it? I think it's almost twice at retail that compared to the one that has a guilloche work at the center. Someone can correct me on that probably, but okay, world time. The usual world time is at retail.
Isn't it like 52,000? 45 to 52,000, somewhere in that wheelhouse.
Okay, so let's see. The white, the steel one, did they not come up? Okay, the cloisonné one is like the one with the world map, 88,710, and that's in what? That's in white gold. That's 5231G, and then they have 5230P. Did they not reintroduce one in gold yet? I think since they discontinued the old models, they haven't yet introduced a gold one, but the platinum one with just the guilloche dial, that's 70. I'm guessing that should be 60 probably, or 50, high 50s. You're right. Yeah. Angelic Slayer says, I like the font on the 5212. Messaging matters. Asian eyesight can become an issue. I might not even like the Daytona for that reason. Happy about the subs increasing to 41. Angelic says, the charm would be the imperfection, I would think. Each dial would be art. I think so. And Turkey Vulture says, hell, I want serifs and grace for that kind of money, not just a CAD program dial. I think you should be entitled to that, but then again, Patek has such a premium. If all the dials were hand drawn, I'm sure we would be talking about a 50K watch rather than a 34K. Yeah, Thomas says the Patek painted world timer is magnificent. So what would be, this question was also asked, Joe, so I will try to direct it to you as well. And it was Louis V 350 again, if I'm not mistaken. If you were to ask Patek or any other maker to make a one-of-a-kind piece for you, what would it be?
A one-of-a-kind piece, huh?
Yeah.
Like how complicated are we getting, or like how advanced are we getting? Like, are we talking like we're creating reinventing the wheel essentially in a movement, or
I mean, if you have
rare metals?
If you have any original ideas that you want someone else to steal, by all means, use my platform to spread them. But yeah, the sky is the limit. Dream up any complication you would like.
Well, I'm probably gonna go completely the opposite end, essentially, probably in a direction most wouldn't, and go towards um, Cartier. Uh, I would I would probably not really reinvent the wheel, but reinvent the not kind of reinvent the dial. So it'd be still a simple three hand. You cram it into a medium, but instead of stainless steel, you would put it into white gold. And then you would take the dial and make it the cream dial, and then put the Arabic numerals on there. And then I would put like the Galbi, like the old Cartier Galbi, is put the date complication at the 3 o'clock position, if it's possible, rather than the 4 o'clock position. Then I would add on that Cartier, keep the butterfly clasp style, but add that like where was it Vacheron? No, it's not Vacheron. I think JLC on their deployment buckles on their butterflies, you can pull out the extra link for that 0.centimeter, so you have essentially a quick adjust on that. And then, of course, the more important thing, add a screw and crown to the Cartier so it becomes a legitimate sports watch. Of course, being on the higher end.
Nice. Love it. Love it. I'm glad you went for the unexpected and unpredictable. But as it turns out, I think Cartier actually is still a brand that's open to these sorts of custom orders, at least when placed in bulk. You know, there were a lot of watch clubs that have produced some special editions of the Santos in the last year. So maybe if you can find, say, 99 other people who would be into your idea, maybe it could be an option.
Get a Kickstarter program, wristwatches for the community.
Yeah, and in the chat as well, if you would like to come up with your own suggestions. Patricia says day date rose gold with moon phase. Yes, I think one would like to see a moon phase in the in a non-Cellini Rolex, again in a contemporary Rolex. And what better place than the day date? I think, especially day date 41 with moon phase. I think that could be interesting. That could be very fascinating.
Yeah.
I honestly, I think one of a kind. Honestly, I think I would. Yeah, this will be cheesy, but I think I would want to have a contemporary production of that single shell monocoque case 5402 Audemars Piguet Royal Oak. Non-complicated two-hander, automatic movement, but with a sapphire case back. And I want my special rotor with my own initials rather than AP. They used to do this. I don't know if they still do it.
Oh.
Yeah, I would love a stainless steel reproduction of the original Royal Oak in the old school, front-loaded movement style. And I don't know. I'm fine with the original small tapisserie dial. That original color, I wouldn't change anything about it. No second hand. The only thing I would change, maybe I would like the date indicator to be perhaps matching the dial color rather than being in white. Yeah, I would like that.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, just so you guys have an idea how how an A series Royal Oak looks at this point in time, properly patinated. This is it. But yeah, I would like it new. I would like it, again, as thin as they can make it, with a sapphire case back. And I would like, of course, I would like the more modern bracelets, and my own initials on the rotor rather than the standard AP rotor. And as an example of that, let's see if we can pull up. I think the Eric Koo from 10 Past 10, he's a watch dealer, had an AP with a custom rotor. Let's see if I can find.
I mean, essentially, that's the same thing as like putting an engraving on your JLC reversal or any type of engraving, essentially.
Yeah.
But it's cooler because it's inside the actual movement.
Right, and in a way you can observe as well. Let's see. I'll just say, forget about Eric Koo for the moment. Royal Oak, custom individualized rotor. Right, you see, for example, this is something that people came together to do. It says P10. Usually this is how it looks like, more or less. This was something they customized. They have, you see, I don't know whose initials this is, but they can do
very cool.
all kinds of different work. And again, it's, I think you found the perfect analogy in another watch, because it's the kind of customization, it's the kind of individualization that's not in your face, that's very personal, and something that only you would know, at least at first blush. Of course, you can share it with other people. Of course, you can show it off to other people, but for the most part, it remains discreet. And I do like that. Turkey Vulture says, watch dreaming with Big Mac and LHV. Thank you. Yeah, it's fun sometimes. Messaging Matters says, distinction in my mind is that having something unique and bespoke is awesome, but not to the point where I want craftsmen to color outside the lines. The work must be precise, whether a car, suit, or watch. I agree. I agree, because look, individuality and uniqueness, singularity, has to be recognizable at some level. Has to be, if you are doing so much work, or if someone else is doing so much work, if you are spending so much time, energy, and money on something, you are clearly doing it to be seen in a certain way. And if it ends up being outside of the box completely, if it ends up being too quirky, it kind of defeats the purpose, right? So I think I agree with the sentiment of messaging's point. So does Turkey Vulture. And Thomas Broadbent says, I have tried an old Salmon dial jumbo at the time, 22K. Yeah, yeah, I remember those days, but those days I did not have 22K to spend on watches, at least not my own money. That's for sure. So, yeah, but listen, that's one of the brands and one of the particular models that has been on the up and up since the 40th anniversary in 2012. At 2012, of course, they were still very luxurious, still quite expensive for most people, but still very affordable. The 15202s, you could still get them from ADs and from boutiques. You could still plunk down some more serious amount of cash and get an A series or B series from the 4-digit. But yeah, now they are 3, 4, 5 times as much, depending on the rarity and condition, and whether it comes with the original box and papers. So it's like everything else in the watch market. Patricia says, I like the rotor personalization, pretty cool. Yeah, I wonder what other brands are out there who do that kind of work. Because usually, sorry, Joe, did I cut you off?
Well, no, I was about to say probably not the brands that you would like. It's probably, I feel like it'd be more common in micro brands now because that feels like something that would be more their wheelhouse nowadays. They've got the time, they've got the, I don't know, resources. No, I don't think that's the right word. But the people who are wanting to spend the extra money on something that's truly unique for them at a reasonable price, if that makes sense, rather than have it etched in on a Patek Philippe or Vacheron, where it becomes, well, it's an extra $20,000 to put in a solid gold roller with your initials on it, type thing.
That was my initial reaction to Joe, and that was my gut feeling as well, because a lot of times at that level of watchmaking and artistry, usually they take too much pride at decorating their own rotors, 22 carats and whatever else. But then again, it could be pretty cool. And that's why I always, dreamed ever since I knew that they do it at Audemars Piguet of having one made like that. But yeah, I think I wonder what other brands can do it. Before Chapek went crazy, maybe they could. Probably no longer.
Tag Heuer probably, but they'll etch it into a piece of plastic,
Yeah, no comment. Captain Kirk, I will have Rolex make an hour striker in a brand new Cellini line, 39 millimeter or 40. Yeah, when the price is hyped, they lose the appeal, just not fun. I agree. But then again, when you actually fall in love with a certain model of watch, and when you have desired it long enough, for me, a Royal Oak has always been an aspiration, and I know I will at some point. I want one. Hopefully, I won't have to move heaven and earth to get one, but it remains to be seen. And for me, I could care less about how hyped up they are. I just love the design, so I need one at some point. Like I need a bullet in my head, of course, but you know how unreasonable and irrational when it comes to watches. Angelic Slayer says, in the vintage Rolex world, there's collectors that want dials with patina, cases that have not been polished, tropical dials, even damaged dials. Yeah, I never understood that, Angelic, to be honest. Um, look, unpolished case, it's one of the trickiest things in the vintage market, because unless you are a real expert or a very seasoned aficionado who has very closely studied factory finishes on those models, it's so difficult to recognize an actual unpolished case. I prefer the term unmolested, perhaps, um, not overly polished, because you know what? Even when you know actually what the factory finish looks like, if you know what that looks like, someone who has a CNC machine and who can fill in
Hi
that
guys, it's Mike the Fake here.
no, that's not what I meant.
Haven't seen Blondie?
I
I'll
love, I
stop.
love this. What I meant is that, you know, if you know how how that's finished, if you can accumulate that kind of encyclopedic knowledge, someone else with the right tools can too. And I know many examples of watches that are filled in and refinished to factory specifications. And yeah, so look for a case that's not unmolested. Try to be the second or third owner of a watch if you can. So provenance is very important for that reason. Deal with dealers that have rock solid reputation, never shaken, uh, never found out for running these sorts of tricks. But yes, look, I do appreciate that people have different tastes, different expectations, different niches in the vintage market, in the vintage Rolex market specifically. For me, the dial is called the face of a watch for a reason in English. And for me, it needs to be well preserved. I don't want any humidity damage, water damage on the dial. I don't want any corrosion on the dial. I don't want spider dial. I don't care how unique or cool someone else might think. For me, that's not what I'm looking for sure. But I
So,
do
Lord,
look,
you don't like tropical dials? You don't like when they get that chocolate brown?
not necessarily. Now, I have seen some tropical dials that look cool, but I see sometimes tropical dials going for a premium over something that has been well preserved. And to me, that's insane. That's But again, I was just saying, like, you know, so much of what we do in this watch world is so irrational and so unreasonable that who am I to judge someone else's irrational decision, right? So more power
Well, I
to them.
understand where you're coming from, but like, I think the Speedmasters are probably the best, arguably, when it comes to tropical dials. It's something about that, the way that matte black fades on those Speedmasters and gets into that chocolate tropical color. It's fucking magnificent, in my opinion. Plus, you got the patina on the hour markers and hour hands. I think it, I think it just looks absolutely, absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I wanna pull up a few examples of this sort of patina that sometimes we even desire. I know you have your dream of maybe getting a bluesy and making it turn into a purple dial, like this one, for example. This is of course a full gold case, but why did it disappear? Right here. That doesn't look so bad, does it?
No, no.
I appreciate that. I can appreciate that. And it's not going for an unreasonable price. Of course, it's not the thickest case I've ever seen. It's also head only. So that's of course a drawback, because you would have to spend a good 5-6K on a bracelet in decent condition, at least. But yeah, that's the kind of aging and patina that I might get on board with, as long as they're not charging an insane amount of premium. I'm trying to find some that have really
I do
turned.
agree, Lord. Though I mean, I thought for a while spotted dials were cool, but when you think about it logically, they're they're just broken watches. Because eventually you're gonna get a flake that's gonna land up in a place where it shouldn't, and then you're gonna be absolutely fiked, and you're gonna need to send it off for service, especially if it's more than like a GMT complication or day complication or whatnot or what have you. Doesn't
I mean,
make sense to have a spider dial.
look, it can be, if it is, I think, if it is well preserved, I think it can still have a lot of life left in it. Because also with a lot of the patina that's considered cool, that's corrosion, that's water damage, that's humidity damage. But once the watch is properly serviced and waterproofed and pressure tested and everything, I think you can basically get in between any further risk, more or less. But again, you have to love it. You have to love the watch that way, and hopefully you're not paying too much of a premium for it, because I really don't think it's reasonable. But then, who am I to ask other people to make reasonable choices in this crazy world of watches?
I mean, that looks magnificent right there.
Right, with the purple dial, like a 5-digit gold bluesy with purple dial. It's I mean, that's a fike off watch, as the pontiff used to say. Oh, Oz, how are you doing, man?
Have a good evening.
Welcome back. What is your take on tropical dials, as someone who is trying to tip his toes in the Rolex vintage world?
Yeah, I'm not sure what the debate is, but I think it's cool. I definitely like the idea of a watch that looks its age. It is certainly on the other opposite end of the spectrum from an unworn, sealed box that has never touched a human skin in its life. I can live with these being elevated in price more than the mint condition ones.
Yeah. Do you see this one, Joe?
Yeah, and I don't know how I feel about this one.
This
I
one's a
think it
bit
looks
much. This one
good.
doesn't look its age. This one's had some sort of biological accident.
I mean, it looks kind of good, but at the same time, it also looks like a turd, you know?
Actually, this, since I also always look for at least the trends in the prices of gold subs, especially the ones with nipple dials, I have had this in mind when the new Royal Oak came out for the 50th anniversary, and when they had that fumé gold dial for the yellow gold version. This exactly came to my mind, and maybe you will see the similarity. So this is the way that this dial aged, right? And also, by the way, the bezel too, the bezel insert too, aged in a similar way. And this is how they designed that new yellow gold dial of the 16202 Royal Oak.
Yeah, I was never a fan of this of this one when they released it. Yeah, yeah, I don't know, something about it. I just don't like it. It's grotesque.
Yeah, I thought it was. Look, when I thought of it as that whole smoked gold finish, I wasn't quite on board with it either. And I do prefer my Royal Oaks either in stainless steel or two-tone than full gold. But now that I kind of put the two together in my mind, that patinated dial and this is nice and quirky. I don't, again, nothing that I would get, but I appreciate it a little more.
LeBron James actually has one of these as well, which is,
Already?
LeBron James. Yeah, no, he was seen wearing one during a playoff game.
Or, well, from the sidelines, huh?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, of course. Yeah, you think LeBron's actually going to put his own efforts into a playoff game? Nah, screw that.
Oh man, I was like, I'm not a Lakers fan, but I was having too much fun with Clippers. I think I kind of jinxed Lakers as well, because Clippers always gets sent home early. So now I think that's just a generalized Los Angeles fate.
Ah, shit, that reminds me. I got to see if the Celtics won.
Amazing, beautiful. Angelic Slayer says, I would never polish character out of my watches. I agree with that, Thomas. My sub, which is my father's sub, has not seen polish. I think since he bought it. Maybe he may have gotten it polished once at service, but since I got it, so in the last 20 years, it hasn't seen polish. It has all sorts of dings and scratches. I adore it the way it is.
Let me ask you this, Lord. How
Yes, sir.
frequently would you polish a watch depending on its thickness? So, like, example, let's just take a standard 44 mil Sea Dweller. That's a thick boy. You could in theory polish that, what, 3-4 times in a, let's just say, 10-year span before you actually have to start worrying about it. Kind of shaving the metal off.
This is what I will say. I know you can always say light polish when you surrender that watch to Rolex, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you will still not know what kind of polish and finish they are gonna do. So I would rather have someone who is well trusted. If you have had experience with them yourself, that's always better, but someone who is trusted by the community, who knows what they're doing, and who, if again, people do it professionally, very carefully, putting the extra TLC into it, so to speak, the material that they have to shave off is actually minimal. And I understand that there are some people who like their watches in that high/mirror polish. I understand that there are certain watches that may, in fact, shine when they are finished and polished that way, like the Reverso, for example, right? A Reverso looks better in mirror polish, in stainless steel especially, than a sub, which gains character, if you ask me, as it goes through the motions and as it goes through the years. That being said, I don't know why anyone would need a watch getting polished outside of the service cycle. But that's just me, again, with all due respect. I think 5 to 7 years, maybe once a decade.
Well, I know guys who have like gold watches. They basically kind of demand, do not shave off any gold,
Yeah.
even if it's two-tone, because they said, well, I mean, essentially, you're taking the value of your watch. Because I guess in theory that is true, but I mean, I suppose depending, like if it's a two-tone, you're taking off such a marginal amount of gold that I mean, what you're probably losing $10, give or take. But if you're doing a full solid gold watch, I understand the argument there.
I've had to come to grips with this, and every new owner of a Rolex has to come to grips with it as well. And that is, what do you do about a watch that's no longer perfect? Do you try to get it back to perfect, or do you enjoy living with it? And I've learned that with my Submariner, that got quite a few scratches early on just because it was my first luxury watch. And while I did take care of it, there were still a few practices that I had that accumulated a few more scratches than maybe necessary, including a scratch on the Sapphire. I've got no idea how that happened. But it's ultimately far more liberating and a position you can live with easier by saying, I don't care about the scratches, or at least not that you don't care. It's just that I will live with the scratches, and leave it at that. And you'll never have
That your
you'll
watch
never
is
experience
original.
a polish that you considered not good or otherwise. And here's the other side of not good is if you get it brought back to that sort of pristine condition, it's sort of no longer your watch anymore, and then you sort of have to re-earn its position, if you know what I mean.
So Angelic Slayer asked, how much are they asking for that crazy patina sub? This is the kind of sub where they're asking for that premium. So it's 50K, let's say 52,111. But look, these have gained in value quite a bit, and this is actually in good, honest condition, has a solid case. That's why I had this picture for a while there. Look, I mean, it's those are pretty thick lugs, and seems, again, largely to have preserved the original finish. The scalloping on the bezel is quite smooth, which also is a good sign. The coin edges, on the back, again, you see, this is just a very well preserved, decent example. So it would easily command 45K coming in this condition, full bracelet anyway. And when you're looking at a watch like this, it has papers as well, apparently. I mean, they're justified in asking 50K in this market. 5 years ago, these watches would be 25 to 27 and a half, 28, let's say. You could find great examples.
Can we look at the dial again?
Nowadays, it's 40, 45. Big George, welcome back.
Hey, how are you, Lord? How are you, Ozzy?
Good.
Oh, we got Big Meech, too.
Yes.
Greetings. Yeah, greetings.
Could we look at the dial again? I just wanted...
Yes, of
Very
course.
interesting piece. Can we see the dial?
Of course, sir.
I was going to ask, I'm familiar with tropical dials, and it's normally like an aging thing that's happened over time. This strikes me as being corrosion, just straight rust under the metal. I mean, this could have happened over the course of a month, to be honest.
You should.
I don't know.
Yeah, you should. I mean, always buyer beware, right? That's why I also shy away from like overly patinated stuff, because people have their own ways of aging things quickly.
To be honest, that looks like water damage.
Yeah, to me, that kind of corrosion just implies there was water in there, and
and that can never be good. That's why I was that's why I was telling to Joe earlier, saying that to me, that's the face of the watch. It has to be well preserved, and if it has humidity or water damage, I just don't want it, no matter how cool it looks,
Well, once you get water in a watch, I mean, you never officially get it out. No matter if they take it apart and air dry it out and stuff like that, you're always going to deal with the moisture, aren't you?
Yeah.
I don't
well,
think it's like Archie's bug-infested rugs or something, but
Well, if you have it serviced, once you have it serviced, they'll get rid of the water, but because they have to take the whole movement apart and then they put it, they put it in
yeah,
in their
Mitch,
machines
I
and
don't think
everything. They
that's
had to clean
completely
up.
correct. Yeah, like for example, one of the processes of a modern service, my understanding, is putting all of the parts into an ultrasonic cleaner, which will mean
Exactly.
immersion of every single component in water. So they've got ways of drying this stuff.
yeah, of course.
I personally use an air compressor, but I don't work on watch parts.
Well, yeah, I mean, still, I would rather have one in good, honest condition. Maybe certain forms of aging, right? But nothing this radical. And I admit again, this looks cool.
Yeah,
But
there's a difference between aging and damage, and that's what I've described as well. Also, when it comes to scratches, that the level of scratches should look appropriate for the age of the watch, no more, no less. But like deep, like gouges and stuff like that is sort of like, well, that didn't come about from age. Like that's literally damage, as in that's not normal wear and tear. So there's a difference between it looking at age versus, because it could have got that gouge the day after it came out of the thing, and you wouldn't say, "Oh, that's a lovely patining." That what you just did there after coming out of the AD and just falling over on it.
Well, I like I prefer the purple dial over this tropical dial. There's just the straight up. I love that when bluesies turn into that like violet color. It's beautiful.
yes, we have looked at a few examples like that, George. I don't know if you could catch it, but I think that's one I could go for. I know they still command a little bit of a premium, but I can certainly see that completely justified because it looks good, quirky enough. There we go. For example,
Oh yeah, that's just really really nice, and that's a nice kit too. Full kit, everything. That's a unique
How,
look.
how do hands age? Because I've seen things that to me just look like damage. I don't understand how a hand would gain scratches and things like that apart from mishandling.
on
Yeah, they look like they get corroded.
over time they get um, all sorts of scratches and stuff. Let me get my sub if you give me a second. Oz, Joe,
Take your time. Take your
I
time.
know you'll take good care of this while I'm gone.
But yeah, I would rather pay the premium for this than over the last piece. If I
Yeah,
had a
to
choice,
me, the
yeah.
last piece, like, I'm not an expert, but that just looks like damage. As in, yes, it's
It
specifically
looks
water
like water
damage.
damage. It just looks
It
like
doesn't look like wear that's been induced after 30 years of being in the
no.
sun or something.
Yeah,
It
I
just looks
agree with
like
you, Ozzy. It doesn't look. It doesn't look natural.
yeah. I think the term picked up from the titanium investigation yesterday is aqueous corrosion, basically water damage.
So let me put myself on full screen for a second. I don't know if we can see this well, but on the minute hand, you see everything else having aged pretty evenly. On the minute hand, closer to the center, there's a little bit of a browning on the tritium.
It's a little tough to pick up, but yeah,
I think I see it.
I think I see it too, but I'm not 100%. Yeah, yeah, I see it.
Like there, it's like a little mark.
To get tight focus, put your hands behind your watch. Like try to remove any of the background because it's still got tight
Wu-Tang.
focus on your background.
Wu-Tang.
There we go. It's a little bit. It's still not tight enough. Yeah.
Can you see now? Maybe.
No, I don't really see. I was just seeing the metal. Yeah, it's hard to see, Lord.
Yeah, one I can try to explain it in that case. Basically, everything else having aged pretty evenly, there's like a little browning, not a spot, but like almost an entire fraction of the lume, just a very, almost like stained, right? And at the end of the day, especially when it comes to the 60s, not that this changed much, I think, until a 2000s, honestly, but you have the hands coming from one manufacturer, the dial coming from elsewhere, all of them using probably their own proprietary mixes for the luminous material. Who knows? Things don't always age evenly, and the lume can be uneven even between the hands, even if it's made by the same producer. And then you also have, I think for that you would need macro shots, but any vintage Rolex, I think when you look at the hands, you will see certain, with the loop especially, you will see certain parts of it scratched. Sometimes you will see marks on the dial from those hands as well. It might be perhaps the work of shoddy quality control, or the work of a watchmaker who wasn't quite attentive when putting the watch together back after service. It can be any number of things, but I've seen all sorts of ridiculous damage in vintage Rolexes. Sometimes it's bearable, other times it's really not what you want in a vintage watch.
So, you guys, I gotta get back to work here. But we'll catch you guys in the next one.
Keep safe, Joe. Keep safe. Be safe. Nice to see you.
Be sure to
Cheers.
leave some
Take care, buddy.
mean, nasty, and vicious comments down below. Like and upvote, guys.
Guys, with
Catch
that,
you guys later.
with that being said, yes, if you have been with us, if you have just dropped by and you haven't yet upvoted, please like this video. I'm trying to get to 1,000 subscribers. I'm trying to get to that threshold of monetization. So if you spread the word, if you haven't subscribed yet, if you subscribe, it's already a great help. But if you also would like to make a small contribution to encourage me to create more new and unique contents, please consider making a PayPal donation at lordhellespontv@gmail.com. Everything helps. And most importantly, these wonderful people being here helps me a great deal. Ozzy, thank you for coming in again. Big George, you have also been a very consistent panelist here, and I'm really enjoying this. So is Joe. Nice to see you all, and all the great people in the chat. Yeah, the purple dial has a lot of supporters. George in the chat as well. Angelic Slayer says,
it's aesthetically pleasing.
yeah, the violet dial is just beautiful. Thomas says that maybe a 40-year-old watch, but could have sat on a dresser in heavy direct sun every day, or maybe
Could be.
just for a little while, and suddenly it turned into that. Who knows? Who knows? I really don't. I wouldn't want to risk it to experiment with it, so I would never know. A friction point tritium will flake. Yeah, maybe at some point that brown spot will drop, and with that my heart will drop too. But
Maybe it's rust underneath there.
maybe I don't know. It's gonna need service, I think, quite soon. And I actually got one of those original tropic domed crystals that were made for the 4-digit sea dwellers. because I really want that look and originality to be, be damned at this point. It's my watch, to hell with it. So next time it goes to service, and I think I will use ABC Watchworks, as I did last time with another Rolex watch. I think I will have them put that on as well. So it's a good excuse to send it to service quite soon.
Sure, why not?
How are you enjoying your Cermet, George?
Yeah, I'm on a honeymoon right now. I'm really enjoying it. It's my favorite piece right now.
Is this your first 12 series sub?
This is my first 6-digit sub. Yeah, I had the 30, but the 30 compared, it's a different animal. The 30 has a different place in my heart, but yeah, it's just different. It's just really nice. I love the way it feels on my hand. It wears really, really great.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there's a really big difference between the 5 digits and 6 digits in feel. It's yeah.
I like the 5 digits. I'm a big fan. I say in a lot of instances, if people want to get into Rolex, I would more push them to 5 digits. I think the 14060, 14060 sub, the original 2-line, it's one of the best subs made, because it's kind of in that neo vintage area. It's very clean. You got 2 lines on text. Um, there's a lot going for that watch. It's priced pretty good.
yeah, it's still priced well, of course. Not how it was priced.
Well, yeah, but everything is up.
Years.
But compared to the other stuff, it's pretty good. I'm gonna say, if I had to guess, I'd still say you could pick a nice piece up for around 10 grand.
Oh yeah, yeah. You can still find great examples, on a full decent bracelet for 10K. I like the sentiment, George, because I find myself 5-digit references right around the turn of the millennium to be some of the best compromises between neo vintage and contemporary, because you get a Rolex watch with Luminova dial, so it's gonna have functional lume. You get the Hose case, so you can still pop out the bracelet if you like it. But if you want to, you get a solid endling bracelet right at 2000. What else would you want, right? It's a beautiful everyday wearer, and it has everything we like about Rolex is there. The reliability, robustness, the recognizability of all the classic models, whether we are talking about a 2-liner no date sub or a GMT Master 2, or an Explorer 2, right? I think that period.
Yeah, Explorer 2 is right up there for me. I've had the Explorer 2, and I really, really enjoyed that time, and I missed that watch. It really is a good piece.
Which one did you have? White, the polar, or black dial?
I had the polar, and I had almost the end of the line. I had an engraved polar. It was really a great watch.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's like you said, the turn of the century, around 2000. There's a lot of things, and collectible. You got Swiss only dials. You got Luminova. Then you got the end of Tritium. There's a lot to pick from.
The end of Tritium is great too, because once again, you get that slight patina, eggshell against black dial, which is one of the most charming things about vintage Rolexes. But you have it under a sapphire crystal. you know, it has a more modern movement, of course. Probably a better bracelet than something made in the 60s, though not always, right? The condition of the bracelet is more important in that case. But anyway, it's just a great compromise, you know,
Exactly.
whichever direction you are coming from, whether you are kind of making your way into collecting vintage, or if you want something a little more contemporary and usable for the everyday, something, you know, plus minus 5 years at 2000, I think that's a great spot. It's a sweet spot.
Another great watch in the same category is the original Explorer. I don't know the reference number, but
Oh,
the original 36 millimeters,
114270.
the ones from the 90s, those are good pickups too.
They are, although
I missed the
the
reference.
new one's really good too.
Oh yeah, the new one. Well, it's hard to get the new one. It's what are they, around 10, 11,000 on the secondary?
Yeah, hover about 11.
Yeah,
I
so you
missed
could
the
get the
reference.
same look, almost the same watch, for around 6 to 7 grand.
Oh, I think the 114270 can be pricier than that. I'm not
I
sure.
feel, what was the reference point? I missed it.
The older
The
36
36
millimeters,
mil.
yeah, was the
Okay.
114270, and the
Yeah.
new one's the 124270.
I like those. I found one that carries a little bit of a premium, so I don't know if I should get into it. And it's I think I will regret it again because I'm moving away from it, but it's like a custom one. The apocryphal thing is that the captain of AC Milan, Paolo Maldini, had this made in 2007. And it has like 50 examples. It has the club logo on the dial at 3 o'clock. And it has the 7th European Cup, you know, 5th European Super Cup, and the first FIFA World Club Cup engraved with 2007 on the case back. I had it posted to my Instagram, actually. Let me see if I can.
Sounds
There.
interesting.
Yeah, but it's kind of
Thomas
an
asked if there's any word on green GMT's landing. I haven't seen anything on forums or otherwise.
Oops. I was just in a Rolex AD. I hesitate to call it mine because I haven't done any business with them yet. Nothing
Your
yet.
local AD?
Yeah, they were saying August, basically. They were saying August for any of these models to be dropping, but maybe it's a conservative estimate.
I'd be a little surprised if the Air King didn't land
A little earlier.
Yeah, soon. Because if you look at the Explorer, that was the brand new watch last year, and it came in May. Air King is the brand new watch this year, and who knows? But you know, it wouldn't surprise me if it came earlier than the GMT.
This is NOS, Lord.
What's up?
This is NOS. It looks like I see stickers on there.
Well, I mean that to me seems like the service sticker, but it might be. It might be. It's not advertised as NOS. That's for sure. Anyhow, but I don't know. It's kind of, it's a little too expensive for what it is, and again, it's a little apocryphal because I know for sure those exist and those are basically authenticated. When Maldini retired a year later, or no, 2 years later in 2009, he actually gave 100 5-digit subs 14060M to some of his most loyal supporters, and those are engraved on the back, and they actually have a number 3 inscribed onto the bracelet, like under 6 o'clock.
Okay.
So
Okay.
depending on what you are looking for, it's either too cool or too tacky. I think I would certainly plonk down, something for that. But this, I don't know. And again, I don't know if this is something that some fan did as a customized thing. I don't know.
So talking about customizing, and Thomas brought up the green GMT. I
Right.
just quickly double checked to see if anyone got one, but I was just thinking along the lines of the word apocryphal, like you said. So get your hands on the green GMT, and then get a watchmaker to flip the case back over and then remount the dial.
I was thinking about that, Ozzy.
Just turn it back into a right-hander. Although the date window would still be on the left. You'd have to get aftermarket part dial to fix that. But yeah,
Right.
that would be hilarious.
Mm.
And you're not
That's a good
permanently
op-
modifying the watch, so it would be good for a laugh.
Could be interesting. Someone should try that for sure. Sorry, George. Go ahead.
No, that would be a great thing, and it probably wouldn't cost too much.
Yeah, it's just, and then mount. There's not much to it. You could do it with a current Pepsi or something if you really, really wanted to.
Next
Imagine
year,
making a Pepsi left-handed.
Or a sub. I think it would be more appropriate on the sub.
It definitely would be more appropriate on a sub.
Because the problem with to me, everyone keeps talking about it being a left-hander's watch, and I kind of get that to some extent, because the GMT is a watch that you kind of meant to operate the crown more often with the jump
Right.
hour, while at the sub you're really meant to lock it, set it, forget it until that month ticks over.
And
so there's
maybe-
really no use case for operating the crown in general.
And maybe also it's sometimes with divers watches, maybe there is, or tool watches in general, there can be a use for a big crown not digging into your wrist bone, right? So I thought the Tudor Pelagos LHD for that reason was quite ingenious. You may have seen this video, Ozzy. I talked about it in a special video, but also in one of the live streams. This internal Rolex AD newsletter where they were introducing the new green black GMT, and there's no word there about it being a left-hander's watch. In other promotional material by Rolex, there's nothing. In that newsletter, there's a sales arguments section. Nothing is said about this being somehow explicitly marketed to left-handers. So Rolex basically did it because they can, and because they wanted to do something out of the left field, if you excuse the pun, because everything else has been done in this cycle in the most predictable Rolex way, right? Evolution over revolution, slight cosmetic modifications, just small technological advances, and move on, except for this GMT.
Yeah, Thomas asks there, do you think the Explorer 70th anniversary will be a special release or a 41mm release in 2023?
Yeah, next year.
To be honest, everyone was really, really looking toward the Explorer 2 last year, and oddly enough, the Explorer 1 gets the completely new watch. Who the hell knows? Like, banking on these anniversaries seems almost...
It's also the Daytona's anniversary too, I've heard, so they might be doing something with that.
It's also the anniversary of GMT Master 2. Fat Lady came out in 83. So
it's the Coke model.
Right. So everyone now expects next year for the Coke bezel insert to return for GMTs for one reason or another.
I don't think they'll do it. There needs to be more reason to do it than...
Yeah,
in setting.
70 and 40. It's not like Rolex never did it, so I won't say that, but it's kind of like an odd anniversary. Like it's not 25, it's not even 35, it's not 50, it's not 75. I don't know. If it is a special release, I actually expect them to, okay, if they do something special with the Explorer next time, I expect a full gold case at this point, rather than
Well,
a larger case, like a full gold
interesting.
Explorer.
Well,
Maybe-
also 2023 is too soon. I mean, they got a brand new watch last year with the new two-tone. I don't expect them to do anything with Explorers for quite a long time.
That's true, but that was also my logic for that, you know, because they tried it. It wasn't immensely popular, but it seems to be gaining some traction now, and maybe they were just testing the waters for. Anyway, maybe 75. We'll have, like, you know, one with green dial in full.
Yeah, just speculating like what kind of things they could do. I don't think they'll move up from 36. It's just not where the market's going.
No,
It
they
doesn't
went
fit.
back. There was too many complaints with the hands and everything, and there was like, then they got rid of the case because of the OP. They moved up to 41, so they went back down to 36.
Mhm.
I think it was, I can't remember which other YouTuber talked about it, but they said like maybe a white dial for the Explorer is a possibility at some point. And I'm
They've
like,
been saying
yeah,
that a
I don't see
long
any real
time
reason
with the
not to.
Explorer.
That seems about right.
Well, you know, here's the thing. I think they are, as much as Rolex always prides itself for industrial production, you know, they make almost 1 million watches every year, and they are trying to be able to use some of these cases across the line, right? That's why case sizes have been coming around. They're also increasingly trying to differentiate between different lines in their among their professional watches. So I feel like that was the reason behind eliminating 39 for Explorer.
Well, the Explorer 36 millimeter is a unique case, actually.
Right.
It doesn't share its case with any other watch.
Mm-hmm. So I think
and the Air King's a brand new one, no longer sharing that with the Milgauss. So they don't seem to be afraid of creating completely different tooling.
That's what I'm gonna say. You know, I think they are not gonna just turn it into a larger 41. I think they're gonna stick for the Explorer. I think they're gonna stick with 36, because if they make a 39 or 40 or 41 case, it becomes much harder to distinguish it from a more plain Air King, or, like, you know, from a 369 Oyster Perpetual.
Yeah, I agree, Lord.
You have to have some sort of distinction.
If you want that bigger watch, I say the new Air King's what you want. Like,
right.
To me, it channels a lot of explorerness in it.
I like the new case too. A lot of people were saying, they was complaining about the crown guards. It doesn't look good with a smooth bezel. I like the look. I like it a lot.
Yeah, I think it's really cool. I was a big I was always negging on the previous Air King. The new Air King I actually like. Like, I would buy it.
Yeah, it's
and
it's a
I'm
much
not one of
thinner
the people
case.
who buy anything. I would buy it. I would wear it.
Mm-hmm.
They fixed the 5. They added the 0.
It made a whole world of difference. I mean, I can't deny. I just hope I'm not just a Rolex fanboy and say these minor differences are everything. But it really turned the watch into a desirable watch for me.
I wouldn't go that far, but you know, honestly, I do like the Air King more than a lot of other models. Certainly, much more than OP. To me, though, it did make a difference. I know maybe I'm a little more OCD than the average person, but to me, it was a sticking point. You know, why is everything 2 digits and the 5 is just a 5? So making
and
that
the loomed 369 is just
Right.
pretty now, in my opinion.
I actually was looking at the speedometer of the Bloodhound, and I
Right.
actually think if they would have just go without the 369, if they would have just not break it up, it would have looked better. I think they would have been better off with that, or maybe just put just like loom sticks, just regular plots. They would have been better off. I don't know. I think that it's busy, but to your point, if I was offered today OP 40 green or the Air King, I would go for the Air King
Yeah,
if
I'd
I
say
had the
so.
choice.
Well,
I take it over the Milgauss.
Yeah, I take it over to Milgauss too. Because
sure.
go ahead,
I
Lord.
like the Z Blue Milgauss style.
I
Yeah.
prefer the Tic Tac, the white dial. I like the older model.
Okay. Thomas asks, do you know the origin of the Air King, the event?
I have
That's
no
the
idea. Like the Air King is a really old Rolex moniker. I have no idea.
Well, I know there was other models. There was like Air Lion. It was like that type of line, and the Air King was the only one that lasted, that came through. I think most of them was discontinued by the 60s.
Well, it
Honestly,
wasn't it until like 2010 or something that the Air King was basically Oyster Perpetual, and then we got the Oyster Perpetual naming again.
I'll pull out my reference book, or one of them anyways, and see if I can actually find some information. But in the meantime, Thomas, if you would like to educate us, because I don't remember actually. I remember reading somewhere that it was the first named Rolex sports model, the Air King.
He posted something. I'll read it. It was the watch that flew over the Himalayas in Nepal.
Nice.
Interesting. Wait, what does that mean?
I don't know.
As in, that's not how time works. They created the Air King because they would fly over the Himalayas. Is that was it a commissioned mission or something?
I don't know. Explorer has a similar history, right? Explorer is actually a model.
A retro history.
It wasn't the one that was actually taken to that.
It was created. It was created out of that.
It was created afterwards. So maybe this is something. Okay, that's exactly what Thomas says. Just like Hillary and Norgay and the Summit.
Okay. So the real watch probably was an Oyster Perpetual in both cases, and then out came the Air King, and out came the Explorer.
So would I be wrong in saying that the Explorer is a tribute watch, being that it's not it's not the actual model that went there? It's a tribute to it.
You could say that.
Yeah,
but didn't are we able to pull up a photo of the actual watch that Summer did?
I know one of the watches was a Smith's. I remember that.
Yeah, the Smith's Commando or something. But anyway, let's look at the Explorer. Let's not bring Smith's into this.
all right.
But maybe the Explorer thing is a little bit more forgivable from the sense that maybe it did actually look like the watch that Summer did. 369 white dial. See, this is why the 70th anniversary needs to bring the white dial back in.
This is it. Doesn't look like an Explorer at all.
Nope. Officially. What's it say underneath Rolex? I can't see it well.
Can I lessen the pain a little bit, Ozzy?
Yeah,
after all, we always like to think that when the first bond was penned, we like to think that the watch that Ian Fleming had in mind was, of course, his own Rolex, which was a 1016. But on the set, all they had was the Submariner. So that became the Bond watch. So they all have their twisted origins, so to speak. I wouldn't think less of any of these.
Same with the Daytona. It's got a weird sort of history that is.
Oh man, the Daytona is a very convoluted history.
Yeah.
I mean, look, if you already like the Daytona, would you like it less when someone told you it actually lost out to the Speedmaster for the horological space race, and that's why it's still called the Cosmograph? And that does that make it a lesser watch for that reason?
It makes it more interesting, in my opinion.
Well,
Exactly.
even then, you go on to its sort of racing heritage, and it's relatively pathetic, in my opinion. Like its level of history in racing is not very strong either. It's like, I mean, I think the Daytona is probably the most overrated watch when it comes to history. I mean, the only reason it got popular was because Zenith didn't produce enough movements. Like, people thought it was a marketing strategy. It's like, okay.
From what I've heard, it was the Italians and Paul Newman. There was one of the first people, because they're they're very fashionable over there in Italy. There was like the trendsetters, and it caught on from there.
Yeah, look, I mean, the thing is, I think it had something to do with the culture of continental Europe in general, because I think in those years, the newer was kind of always better for a lot of Americans. So it was much more fashionable to have the new watch rather than something you inherited from your father, right? Whereas Italians actually went into the flea markets and estate sales, and also took care of watches they inherited from earlier generations, and obsessed over certain kinds of dials and certain combinations of bezels with those dials, and suddenly, when everyone else was dealing with the quartz crisis, they were obsessing about minute differences from one mark of Submariner to another. They were collecting Daytonas. They were buying up Royal Oaks and Nautiluses when everyone else treated them as dog shite. I think that does have a lot to do with how things caught on. Celebrity, stardust always has something to do with it. Of course, they obsess.
And I've heard that too, Lord. I've heard the same thing.
Yeah, the that cover image, right? With Paul Newman, like posing with the Bond strap and his exotic dial Daytona.
Well, that wasn't his Daytona, right?
His wife bought it for him.
No. The one where he's posing with that was a Rolex that was owned by the photo studio. That wasn't his Daytona.
I thought that was his, the one that Diane Woodward gave him.
He does have that watch exists, but it wasn't the one in that photo. It's my understanding.
Just taught me something. I didn't know that. Very interesting.
So, I mean, looking at the different watches and Rolex's lineup, picking which ones have the most honest history is interesting. I think the Submariner has a lot more history than just it being a fictional character's watch.
I was just about to say that. The sub.
Well, for sure, I didn't mean to say that, but like
no, you weren't. I'm just saying, like, the Submariner has a lot, and it probably still ranks pretty highly, even if Bond doesn't wear it anymore and never was meant to wear it or whatever.
But I mean, here's the thing: Bond wore a lot of different kinds of watches, right, over the years. But to this
Kelly
day,
knows it's very well, actually.
Right. Even in the age of Omega, you still have to put a scene in Casino Royale, where Vesper says, well, you must be wearing a pretentious watch. Let me guess, is it a Rolex? Right? So he has to push away that question and saying, no, it's Omega. Right? To the extent that it became so entrenched in the mythology of that character. But I think that says also about how much of these historical origins and provenances and sporting, athletic, and military associations are part mythology, part history, part fact, part fiction. And at the end of the day, it's really about the emotion those stories convey than their factual value. I mean, I know that doesn't necessarily sound good.
Well, the GMT Masters history is pretty honest. Created for pilots, was
it
worn
was
by
created for
pilots,
Pan Am.
and my understanding is a lot of them were sold on what do you call on bases? There's a store on bases, and they were sold in those bases stores.
Yeah, the military. That was bought by the military men. Yeah.
Yeah. What do you call it? The CO, the QX or something?
I don't know.
I know what you're talking about, but
Yeah.
it's late over here. I can't think.
Yeah, but I've seen plenty of stories of pilots having bought that watch, for a few $100 from those stores.
Yeah. If you
It has a
watch,
very
go on
honest
YouTube.
history.
If you go on YouTube and type in GMT Antiques Roadshow, and you'll have an older gentleman explaining the story. That's just how he bought one. And
Thomas says, by the way, sorry to interrupt,
no, that's
George.
okay.
Omega paid for product positioning. Yes, actually, listen to some of Jean-Claude Biver's interviews on this. He, in fact, overpaid, right? He paid them more than what the Bond producers asked them. And he said, let us advertise it with Bond ahead of time, so people go with the knowledge of what they wanted to see in, what they were going to see as Bond's watch in Goldfinger. He was very calculated about it, very strategical about it, even though apparently he took his time and he needed some convincing before he went through with it. It's a very good story. I think it's, let me see if I can find the link to that interview. Go on, guys.
Sure. I just want to comment. I think that Omega are not doing enough with that relationship, or at least I don't think so. So the boutique at the Bellagio, there's two boutiques in Vegas. The boutique at the Bellagio removed their Bond imagery, their banners and stuff, I think around November of last year. Like the movie had barely gotten out of cinemas by that point, I think, and they'd already removed it and just put it, generic Omega stuff. And I honestly think that they should just push that more. I mean, it's cool. I mean, why not? Why would you remove that so early, as if it's just a flavor of the month type thing? It's like Bond isn't a flavor of the month type thing. I mean, he's
iconic.
Yeah, I don't know why you would remove that. I would say you should have those images up for the next 5 to 10 years. It's perfectly fine. They'll probably be 5 to 10 years before the next Bond is made. It's not like No Time to Die is disappearing.
Yeah, this is Jean-Claude Biver's London Real interview, and specifically the part that concerns the Omega partnership with Bond. So check it out at some point. We are in the last 10 minutes of this live stream. Guys, thank you so much for being on the panel with me. Joe, Ozzy, Big George, I appreciate you all. Thank you for being in the chat and asking all these wonderful questions and helping us generate the content. If you haven't upvoted yet, please don't forget to like. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. It helps me a great deal. I'm trying to reach 1,000 subs, and I'm willing to put in the work, put in the time, put in the effort. Until then, if you want to encourage me, I also, of course, welcome your donations through PayPal at lordhellespuntv@gmail.com. That's lordhellespuntv@gmail.com. I really appreciate you all, and get your questions, requests, and demands in before we close. Thomas says, I think Rolex Daytona got out-hustled by Omega Man on the Moon. They missed the deadline. Omega was superior, took Rolex to work the kinks out.
I don't think a modern Daytona would pass the same tests. I'm thinking about doing the same a video on such a thing where I redo the NASA tests, but not on my Daytona. I'm not. I don't think it'll survive. Like the problem with the NASA tests is it's doing things that I don't think the watches are designed to do. So there's a heat test where you bring it up to 80 degrees Celsius, and then you plunge it into cold. There's a vibration test and stuff like that. I was like, I'm not exactly sure they'll pass even today.
Here's a good hypothetical, Lord and Ozzy. Let's say that the Omega didn't pass the test and the Rolex did. Would the Rolex Daytona still be as iconic as it is today, or would it
be called the Daytona?
Yeah, it'd be called the Cosmograph.
It would have experienced popularity at that time, and that just means it would have been a completely different history.
Yeah,
completely different at that point.
There would definitely be no John Mayer Rolex today. It would be different.
You know, honestly, what I let me put it like this: I like thinking in counterfactuals, but the way it worked out, it gave us two icons rather than one, even though one,
agreed,
that being the Daytona, took a little while longer to become an icon rather than simply being another Rolex in the lineup. I like how things worked out because imagine, you know, Omega had a lot of ups and downs, and if it didn't go into the quartz crisis with having won that like hometown battle against Rolex, who knows how it would have turned out, because Omega needed to be saved from bankruptcy a few times in its history, especially post-quartz crisis. So if it didn't have the Speedmaster going into it, would we have Omega? Would we have Speedmaster? Who knows? Maybe it would be just a vintage watch that people immensely desired.
It would be really interesting because, you know, if you look at Daytona's history, it's a very interesting history. It's an underdog. It really is an underdog story because they was unwanted and unloved.
Because let's be honest as well, you know, again, the reason I'm happy about this is not only because the iconic, you know, Speedmaster, the Moonwatch, but of course, 321 comes from a much earlier collaboration started by Tissot, Omega, and Lemania in producing movements together, SSIH, that organization. And that's Eboche, that movement base Lemania produced in CH27, gave us basically all the iconic hand-wound chronographs that we came to know. All these prestigious models from Patek, all these hand-wound chronographs from Vacheron Constantin, from some other smaller brands. I'm pretty sure Roger Dubuis had some models at some point that were based on the same caliber. You know, it would have been a crying shame if that whole heritage was somehow cleaned out by some accident of history. So I'm glad things worked out this way.
Yeah, it's a good point.
Yep.
Or maybe if Hoya won, it wouldn't have become Tag Heuer. They may have survived on their own leg.
Right. And maybe we would have a brand that wouldn't have to be trusted to a 23-year-old heir of the larger conglomerate CEO.
23-year-old that looks like a 15-year-old.
Well, he looks better now since, I think it's been already 3 to 5 years since he assumed the helm. So he does look like genuinely in his 20s now. And I don't care how he looks like, honestly. It's just, I feel it's a little too much.
No, it's disgusting.
I know
nepotism is just something that's very, very hard to get along with.
Look, I know the world is not ideal. I know people get preferential treatment. I know nepotism exists, but come on.
If it was a family-owned business, fine, but it's not.
Right. I think it's a family-owned multinational corporation because there are a lot of Arnauds who are at very high executive positions in that LVMH body.
Yeah, but it's a publicly listed company. Like, they don't own the majority of the company.
It's true. That's true. Thomas says Zenith saved the Rolex Daytona. Yeah, 1988.
Yeah, definitely. Can't argue that.
1988 to 2000. And since...
Inadvertently, right?
By the way, also, that's a milestone moment for Rolex as well in 2000 when they reintroduced the Daytona with the in-house automatic caliber. That was one of the marketing genius movements by Rolex, because then that revived Daytona in a huge way. That sort of reinvented the brand image too, in a sense that they now at least try to be horizontally and vertically integrated, supposedly producing everything in-house, although I don't think there's a watch brand or any luxury brand that produces everything in-house at this point in one location. I think that's basically impossible, but hey, at least it became kind of like the marketing banner they used, and it plays an important part in Rolex's recent history as well.
I'd love to know the exact people who design these new movements, because this seems to be quite an undertaking that needs specific and intense expertise applied. And the problem I see for Rolex actually saying, "Oh, we did it." I'm not saying they didn't, but I'm just saying for a business to just say develop one new movement every 10 to 15 years just doesn't seem like the amount of volume you'd need to have like true experts in this, working in-house, quote unquote. Another example of a company that you would think, well, why would they do it out of house? Well, for example, the PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5 from Sony, you go, well, Sony knows how to make PlayStations, right? Well, the chief architect is not an employee of the company, Mark Cerny, and he's had a lot of industry experience and he's developed lots of different systems and so forth. And he just gains more experience by not being associated and a direct employee of that business, because then he can work on the next thing and the next thing in the intermediate 8 years between these releases.
Maybe we'll all get a say on this, and that could be a good point to close. George, what is your position on this in-house, everything in-house or in-house movement rhetoric watch industry?
I'm a big fan of ETA movements. I think they're workhorse movement. I think in some instances, like I think the bet, like in Panerai, for instance, I think the Panerais with the ETA movements, I prefer them. Like the 111 is like iconic Panerai, and that's got an ETA movement. It just depends. Like Tudor is a company that's doing in-house pretty good, but then again, their watches, their cases are a little bit too thick. So it's hit or miss. It depends on the company.
And also, let's not forget that they are also sharing and collaborating with other brands too when it comes to certain movements. We know already the chronographs, their chrono movements.
The B01.
Yeah. I'll put it I'll put it this way. I think, again, it was a whole marketing shtick moving into the 21st century with Rolex, and they have been so successful that the entire industry embraced that rhetoric, not necessarily the practice, including Rolex. For me, if you have the right business model, if you have the right vision, actually there is virtue and there is benefit to leaving things to their experts. Imagine Audemars Piguet always depended on in-house designers for their watches. They would have never gotten a Royal Oak, because Gérald Janta was the kind of guy who just did not want to be shackled by one watch brand over another, right? I'm sure some people might look down on that, and Gérald Janta invented watch design as a métier, as a profession. But he thought of himself too highly, and he took himself so seriously as an artist that he wouldn't just sign up to work with Bulgari exclusively, or Cartier exclusively, or Audemars Piguet exclusively, or Patek exclusively. He was just designing on the go, having fun with it, and just expressing his creativity as freely as he could.
What I'm trying to get at, I'm glad you bring up Genta, is that I think there's a lot more people behind the scenes that have a similar history to Genta. I'm sure the people who designed the Daytona movement may have also designed a few other movements at other brands, because there's just not enough work for that level of work within a single brand.
And that's the other thing. Perhaps it's good that Gégé Lecoutre used to design movements, Lemania used to design movements.
Yes.
And they would provide that base, right? They provide the expertise. And we fall short sometimes in this too, when Audemars Piguet got that ébauche, got that movement base, it wasn't just about polishing and finishing and decorating the movement. They also had their unique way of putting that movement together, including the particular kinds of finishing they applied, that provided their expertise to it. So I think that sort of collaboration, to me, excites me more, and I wouldn't look down upon it automatically.
Yes,
just because it's not everything in-house.
I think that's one of the downfalls with Rolex, because in their view, nobody's bigger than the crown. Because I remember hearing the Oyster Quartz was either designed by Gerald Genta or his son. I'm not 100% sure of the story, but there's rumors, and it can never be confirmed because Rolex will never let out the information.
Well, Janta himself sometimes doesn't have the information, because I was listening to an interview with his wife, and he was saying the guy used to just drive around in his car, spend a few days at the Bialbienne, spend a few days at Vallée du Joux, spend a few days in Le Brassus, and just sell one design for 1,000 francs and move to the next town. So he wasn't working as a very organized businessman. So who knows? I think there are so many designs of him around in Cartier, in Bulgari, in Rolex, in Omega. Of course, the more recognizable and well-known ones in Audemars Piguet and Patek, many, many others. Guys, thank you so much again. Please do upvote on your way out. Subscribe if you haven't. Spread the word far and wide. And if you want to ask me a question, or if you want to send me a PayPal contribution, please use lordhellespont@gmail.com. I appreciate it. Let's get to 1,000 subscribers. Let's go. Good night, guys.
Good
I
night,
appreciate
everybody.
Good night.